Go ahead.
Today, who we got? Who we got? Peter,
This
introduce
is
our
this
people,
is
man.
Vivian Williams, former police sergeant Vivian Williams, former police detective Vivian Williams, lifelong resident of Roseland, who spent a 30-year career
Yes.
working on the far south side in the same community where those of us in Chicago Cred work. And so you know a lot about Chicago Cred. That you're actually doing a little work with Chicago Cred right now, but you retired from the police department, and we're going to get into your philosophy of policing because I think it's the future of policing. But before we do, let's just start out with who you are and where you grew up, and whatever you want to share about your personal story that took you on this journey to become a police officer. And of course, this whole podcast is about gun violence and the people who are working to stop it, and you're one of them. So start at the beginning if you can.
Well, I grew up in the Auburn Gresham neighborhood.
Okay.
Um, and after going to school and starting to work for the Board of Education, I decided that I wanted to become a police officer. Why did I want to become a police officer? Because I wanted to try to help people in any way that I could. I wanted to try to get people some resources because I just felt that there was a need for police who definitely cared. I saw a lot of people caring, and I saw a lot of good work that police officers were doing, and I wanted to be a part of that good work. Um, I got married and then divorced, and we were living in Roseland neighborhood, and I continued to live there as a single mom and take care of my children. I saw a lot of the guys who started to go into the gang life. They grew up right there in the neighborhood with my children. They used to play in my backyard. And I saw some things that I thought could be done different. And I saw some of them who just needed some nurturing, needed somebody to care about them, somebody to talk to them, somebody to maybe grab them in the collar every now and then, and try to redirect them. So as a police officer, I intentionally decided that I was going to be that person that my youngest son told me to be. He told me, "Ma, always be that somebody who makes everybody know that they are somebody." And that really stuck with me. So I always wanted to leave people better than I found them.
I know you often talked about even in cases where you have to arrest somebody, do it with dignity and not to insult people, even as you're detaining them, right?
Correct. When you have to arrest people, and I see that being the majority of police officers, um, it's that small few who make the news. But unfortunately, good stories don't always sell papers, so that's kind of left out, and it's so few bad stories that they're easier to tell, and the good stories are so many that it would flood the newspapers and flood the television cameras if they told all the good stories about police officers. So I really thought about people and how things could change, and I looked at people in my career. I definitely want to reference a person, Chief Antoinette Orsetti. She is chief of detectives,
For the Chicago Police Department
Chicago Police
right
Department.
now, right?
Right now, she's
Yeah,
chief
yeah,
of detectives. Yes,
yeah.
and I just see the way that she cares in her CIT program that she was running, the crisis intervention team training that she gave, and that put a whole new look on the way I thought about people and how to um, approach different calls when I went in as an officer. I looked at some of the younger officers and thought about how could I direct them to being able to better understand how to help people and do that service part of policing. When you find a person and you confront what is going on, how about you, after confronting it, how about you support it?
Do
How
you
to
do
Yeah.
you think that like police are trained to be tough guys and not trained to be supportive and service oriented, or are they trained to do both?
Well, I feel like there's been a change since George Floyd.
Yeah.
Um, when I went through the academy, I don't remember a whole lot of being taught to support people and to help people through different circumstances. I was kind of taught to go in, deal with what was
Take
going
control
on.
of the
Yes,
situation, right? Police
yes,
officer has to get control.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, and deal with what was going on, and then either make an arrest or solve the problem somehow, and then move on to the next job.
Mm.
Now I'm seeing a lot of de-escalation classes being taught within the police department, which I give kudos to Snelling, to Superintendent Snelling, for all of the de-escalation as well as the community service that he is really pushing. And people, officers are, in my opinion, right now being taught to serve the public, to serve the community, to give the resources and support individuals within within your job. Try, try to make things better for that person, because you got to say, if you don't do something different, you're going to continue to get the same outcome. You're going to continue to go to the same homes. There's a young officer. Well, I don't know how much Sam's not that young anymore, but Samantha Smith. Um, I was told by another officer that she went to a call and the landlord was about to throw this lady out because she didn't have the rent money.
Mhm.
So I was told by an officer, and I was a sergeant at the time, that Samantha went and got her checkbook and wrote a check to the landlord. And when I asked Samantha about it, she said to me, "Oh, Sarge, don't worry about it. The lady was going to get put out. $600 is not going to make me or break me."
The police officer wrote the check and paid the rent.
She wrote the check and paid the rent. So I asked Sam, I said, "Well, hey, let me give it back to you because I make a little bit more as a sergeant." And she says, "No." I said, "Well, I'm going to give you half." She said, "Absolutely not. You didn't ask me to do this." She said, "I did not want to see the lady and her children put out on the street. So I wrote the check."
Yeah.
And I said to myself, wow, this is definitely the way policing should be going. Not giving up the $600,
I
but
mean, you
yeah,
can't ask police to be writing people's
yeah, but
covering people rent.
yeah,
He handles housing for Chicago Cred
yeah,
these days, so he knows a
yeah,
lot about it.
that was the way that she felt she could deal with it right then, because
Right.
the lady had been off work for a couple of weeks or something and had gone back to work, so she was a little behind. So she would be able to keep it up from there.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
I saw Officer Delbert Howe. He's a new officer in the fifth district, and I see him at the schools and supporting these young people, especially Corliss High School. I got a call from Corliss about a kid who needed some support. And I called Officer Howe. He said, "Oh, I'll go over, I'll take care of it. Don't worry about it." And now he's mentoring that kid.
Hmm.
And that's not something he's doing on police time.
Yeah, he's doing it on his own.
He's doing it on his
You
own
know, when I
time.
when I, when I think about policing, I know sometimes police get a bad rap. I personally, I think I always push like reimagining policing. Like, what is that based on the history of policing altogether? When I sit next to you, I feel like my sister. I feel like I'm sitting next to my sister, right?
Mhm.
Or some family. I feel family. But I have to be honest and say I remember even doing this work, being pulled over, and the police putting this gun to my head. Like, just it was a traffic situation. It wasn't like I didn't, I was doing this work, and he hadn't got my ID or anything. He just, you know, was like, "Hey, hands up." I'm like, "All right," and he had this gun drawn that was aimed to my head. This was right after the George Floyd situation. So in my mind, I'm thinking like I'm trying to go home to my kids, and something could happen, and he looks nervous, and I'm just thinking like, damn, like and I remember after he left, his partner came and was like, I remember it was a female. She came and was like, kind of smooth the situation over.
Mhm.
And she was like, "All right, you can leave, no big issue." But in my mind, I'm like, this guy stopped me because he said I switched lanes without a signal, and he had the gun to my head in broad daylight. And if something would have happened where I wouldn't have made it to my children, it could possibly be said that I was reaching or anything. And them stories take place, and I know it's maybe I know there are police that are good people, but I think that culture culture competency has to be taught more often. That may be what you're speaking of now. Like since George Floyd, there may be some more culture competency classes taking place. Like I said, when I'm sitting next to you, I feel like if that may have taken place, it might not have been a gun pull, just because you can maybe able to relate to what's happening right here, and someone else may come from a suburb and somewhere else, and they just see a black guy's car. Okay, he might have something on him, um, and he reads the wrong situation, which can
Right.
cause in someone dying. You get what I'm saying? I'm saying that we appreciate what's happening. As someone coming from the community, I appreciate knowing that the police are trying to make a difference in that understanding. But even identifying that still takes place, I have to be honest with you and saying that.
Did you find that a lot of the guys you worked with came from, like, maybe white guys like me or whatever, came from not from Chicago or outside, and it took them a little while to sort of get a feel for the city?
Yes, yes,
That's what
yes,
I was trying to
yes,
get to.
Yeah.
yes,
That's
yes. Definitely. Um, I definitely know that when you've experienced some traumas yourself, I'll say that it makes you, I won't say a better police officer, but you learn to deal with people on a different level. You learn to, for instance, like the putting the gun to the head. No matter who you are, no matter just was not right. It was not right. We are not trained ever to put a gun to anyone's head. And when body cameras came into play, a lot of officers, it met with some resistance. But I was okay with a body camera, and most officers were okay with body cameras because we were not doing anything we were not supposed to do. I was now sometimes my mouth may have got me in trouble. I may have not used the word that's found in the Bible every now and then, but I was willing to accept whatever consequences became behind me saying something I shouldn't have said. But at no time was I going to put a gun to anyone's head. So I believe the body cameras have helped a lot with situations like that. And also, when an officer does something wrong, I think they need to be called on it. I COPA, internal affairs. I believe it needs to be dealt with. But that's the same thing as if a teacher does something wrong, if a doctor does something wrong. There's good and bad in everything.
right.
So,
And I want to be clear when I say he pointed. It was like 2 feet away,
but it
right? It
still
was,
was
but
pointed
no,
at
no, no.
you.
I ain't taking away that
Hmm.
he did something wrong. But see, just like you just said. So for me, I'm thinking because I got a background, right? I'm not even thinking of Copa, or I don't even know what that is.
Hmm.
But his partners, and this back to like people say the biggest gang in Chicago is the police. You know that.
I've heard that.
So, and often police may not say something about another police doing something wrong, and that makes people from our culture, our neighborhoods feel unsafe in the sense of like this wasn't right. He just put the drugs in. He did that, or
Mhm.
he did that. Now, not to say it always happened, but it has happened to the point where it's like, who can we trust in the situation where you are in my neighborhood and I believe you here for the benefit and safety of my neighborhood.
Well, one thing that is, I'm not sure how new it is, but there's a general order, and in that general order, it says duty to intervene. So if an officer points a gun at you, and I'm standing there watching that, when you reported and they found it on body camera, and I did not stop him and also go in and talk to a supervisor about it, I'm in as much trouble as he is.
Yeah, you now have an obligation to do
Yes,
something
yes,
about it, right?
yeah. The name of it is duty to intervene.
Okay.
So you have a duty to stand up for that community member.
Can you see that all of these efforts could have a real beneficial, like rebuilding the trust and getting the community and the police more in sync? Can you feel that starting
I,
to happen?
I do. I definitely feel like the police department is going in the right direction. Um, it wasn't broken overnight. It's not
Right.
going to be fixed overnight. It's going to take a lot of effort, and we all have to work together. Sometimes I talk about myself in the sense of being community, and sometimes I talk about myself in the sense of being police. I'm having a real difficult time letting go that police life, but to me, police and community are one. It's not like the police, the community. I was a police officer, but I was also a member of the community. I live where I work. I've lived in Roseland for 38 years, and I've worked there for 29 years, 4 months, and 16 days. But we're not going to count it. Yeah, and I actually thought about going back because I actually love policing. I love the Chicago Police Department. I love the way things are going right now. Um, have I seen some things that shouldn't have happened? Yeah, yeah, I have. Uh, uh, but I would definitely say that I saw a younger officer one day, and this older guy was going into the back lot to take his car because his car was being impounded. So the officer that impounded the car, came outside, and he was yelling and screaming. I was a police officer. He was a police officer. So he's yelling and screaming at the older man, and people are kind of standing around watching. So I walked over to the officer. And I said, "Excuse me, can I ask you a question?" And he said, "What?" I said, "Are you going to arrest him? Or are you going to tell him to just get out of the back lot? What are you going to do here?" I said, "Because this lecture has gone on long enough." So he looked at me, he told me, he said, "Just go. You can't take your car." And the man left. And the next day, that officer, he's still there in the district right now. The next day, that officer came to me. He said, "Thank you so much." He said, "Because I had kind of got full of myself." He said, "And I had lost focus." And I told him, I said, "I knew you had, because you're not that person. And you had a whole audience that was watching you do something that could have cost you your job." There were no body cameras at that time.
That gets to what you were talking about with that article that you sent me about the stress on the police these days, and just
Yeah, I've had several friends, and who I call friends, who have taken their life.
law
Um,
enforcement.
Law enforcement, several police officers who have taken their life.
Yeah,
Um, and
we got a lot of them in Chicago. We're like
yes,
higher than the national average for police
yes.
suicides.
What would you say? What would you say the average is?
I don't know what the average is, but I know we're higher. I've read several articles that it's like 5 a year, 6 a year. It's
Yeah.
not 100 a year,
Well,
but it's more than.
What would you say? What would you say the reason that this is taking place?
unresolved trauma. Uh, you couldn't imagine what police officers see on a daily basis. Like, you see the news and you see just a little bit of what a officer sees daily. You go to I had an officer tell me, she said that she went to three shootings in one day. Three, matter of fact, there were three homicides in one day, where she had to write the paper on all three. And it was just my opinion that a sergeant should have caught that. They should have caught that this was her third.
This was too much stress for her.
Yes, he
Yes,
should.
yeah.
So a sergeant should have caught that. And she just bringing it up now, saying, "Well, I went to three homicides in one day. I had the paper on all three homicides." And I said, I'm really sorry that no one caught that. Um, what do we do now? How do we, walk you through this? How do we help you? And she's actually in counseling, not for that, but for something totally unrelated. But I did tell her you should talk to your counselor about that. It's you definitely need counseling. Um, I depend a lot on God, and I have a very close family, so I do a lot of praying. Um, and I encourage other officers to pray. And I also encourage them to talk. I feel like there should be more de-escalation, more times where officers come in and get to talk about their day. The roll call, you go in, you sit down, they tell you, what's going on. Then you go to check off, and I don't know if there's enough opportunities where officers are being asked, "Are you okay?"
So the work that we do. He was a life coach. Is giving these guys a safe space to talk about things, right? And
I,
and you're saying police officers don't have that.
Uh, yeah, there's EAP, and there are different places that you can go and have a conversation, but you have to go. Um, I I don't know if there's been enough times that maybe a supervisor or a coworker is identifying that someone seems to be a little different. And is it okay to be a little different? Is it okay to
Is there stigma associated with it?
right?
Yeah,
Is it
yeah,
right? Is it okay to say, "Hey, today's just been a little bit too much for
yeah. I
me."
could use a little
what,
help.
what
Yeah.
what is what's a normal week for a Chicago police officer in one like a high risk neighborhood as far as how many shootings they may go to? What's the like an average if you can?
Well, you're you're asked to go to every shooting if you're not busy.
Hmm.
Like if you're busy, we need to support the other officers as well as support the community. You have to be there because there's going to be some family who's going to
Hmm.
need somebody to talk to.
Right.
So you're asked to go. Um, how many shootings are in
Like
a
say like if
district?
I'm in Roseland, I'm
It varies. It just varies. Sometimes it's hot and sometimes it's
right.
cold. Sometimes you can go a week or two without a shooting. Sometimes you get in a shooting every day. When people are in conflict,
Hmm.
and CRED doesn't get out there, or the other organizations don't get out there and stop the retaliation, then you're going to have the shootings occurring more frequently. More often, you're going to have shootings because everybody wants their lick back.
And the reason I'm asking this is I'm thinking about the police officers that deal with I'm in Roseland or wherever, and I'm going to these shootings and deaths. I'm seeing this, and I'm being traumatized by it to the point where I may even take my own life. And I'm thinking about the young men that go through that same type of trauma. That's like you seeing a person that you just see the victim, but this my friend or this my
Hmm.
brother or
Hmm.
this my cousin, and this may happen, you know, in the same month I might lose a friend. So if the police officer professional who's trained is looking at where they may even take their own life. I was even speaking to Peter about this a while ago. I don't know if you remember. I I kind of think that some of these young guys put themselves in like what they would say like a kamikaze mission where they don't care about dying.
Hmm.
They may not particularly kill themselves, but they'll put themselves in a situation where they'll keep doing something until they die
Hmm.
Intentionally dangerous.
intentionally.
Yeah, yeah.
Almost like a high, trying to get
Like
that
trying to
next.
like almost like that survivor's remorse, like I'm gonna keep doing something until y'all kill
Hmm.
me,
Hmm.
and then I'm gonna feel better in a sense of like I ain't got to keep feeling sad or sorry or that pain, which I'm imagining that the police may feel sometime by constantly going to see these victims.
Yes, it, it does wear on you, and you are just expected to be strong. It's expected of you to be able to handle this, and you have to have that friend who sees that something isn't right with you. Someone has to identify it, notice it, and get you help you get some help. And your family members, we ask officers all the time, talk to people. You don't have to go home and be in the shell or pick up a bottle. Let's talk about it. Um, we've had officers who've come in and been very upset about. I had a young officer many many years ago. There was a fire, and 3 children died in this fire. And at the time, I was a field training officer, and he was a new officer. So there was a young lady smoking in the bed. 3 small children died. The next day, this officer had somewhat of a meltdown, and right in front of me, he just started to cry, and I'm looking and wondering, what can I do to help him? And after I had a conversation with him, I went in and spoke with the captain at the time, and I said, "Hey, we need to pull this kid off the street. Yesterday was a bit too much," and we had done we had sat down together before we left work the day before when it originally happened, but he had a child who was about the same age, and I didn't see how much trauma that was for him when it originally happened. And I was his field training officer, and I should have been more observant because I'd seen these things several times, not 3 kids dying in a fire, but I had gone to so many calls and seen so many things on the street. And I've learned how to deal with it and how to pray about it. And I kind of missed that one. I had the conversations with all the supervisors with him, and afterwards he went on home. The next day when he got back to work, as soon as he got in the car, he was unable to move anymore. And I said, "Man, I missed that. But what did I expect from him? You the police, come on, let's go. We get the radio was calling us."
Yeah. Do you find that when you talk to the guys in cred, and I assume you've met with a bunch of them now, right? You talk to
Yes.
some of the participants
Mhm.
and everything. Do you feel like you can cross that bridge with them and sort of build a bridge with them and get them to see what police are dealing with, and police get to see what they're dealing with? I mean, is there that possibility that people start to see the humanity in each other?
Yes, definitely. There are a lot of police officers who visit like the CRED locations, and just go in and have conversations. One in particular is Dewan Turner. He's a district intelligence officer for the 5th District. And Dewan has become friends with um, a lot of participants. They see Dewan on the street, and they, "Hey Juan," and he sees them, and Dewan has never been that judgment type person. So when I left CPD, I actually started to introduce Dewan to everyone in cred because I knew that they would need to work together, not to not so that the participants or the staff at CRED would be able to help him in any way with any type of police work, but that he would be able to help support them when it came down to talking to guys about not retaliating,
Hmm.
and just finding a better way to solve your issues. This conflict resolution piece, Dewan is really good with bringing different groups together
Yeah.
and talking to them.
Do you feel like police appreciate what CVI is, or is there a growing appreciation for
There
what
is def yes.
CVI is in this city?
Yes, definitely. Commander Johnson, Carla Johnson, she meets every other week, I believe it is, with CVI, with all of the organizations. She has a meeting
Hmm.
with all of the organizations, and it's like, how do we support each other? Um, Early on, there was, some problems. And I actually had gotten a call from Failings Family Services asking me if I could help them resolve a difference of opinion between some of their supervisors and some detectives.
Mm.
So we were able to have a conversation, and I know that I believe it is Commander Watson and Fred Waller.
Fred Waller, yeah.
Yes, I
Yeah.
believe they are uh, coming up with a general order on a professional understanding, so that we understand that the work that CVI is doing, and you understand the work that the police are doing, and we won't step on each other's toes, and we won't come and ask you or insist that you give any information that's given to you in meetings with your participants, because it's almost like that attorney client privilege. We can't expect people to trust CVI if
Yeah.
CVI is coming and feeding the police
Yeah.
information.
No, we're very, we've been pretty clear about that all along.
Yes, yeah.
In fact,
So,
we,
but there were some officers who didn't understand that. They didn't understand that CVI is not your informant.
yeah.
So, uh, once those conversations were had, and there was some roll calls held on it, then people are definitely starting to understand, and officers now say, hey, maybe we better, call the CVI guys and get them to go out and talk to this group so that they don't retaliate. So definitely there's a respect for the work.
Let me. I think about some of the young guys I work with, and that have made some major changes. And I often think, like, even in that change, people still look to try to kill them. Um, and sometimes I'm hesitant in telling them not to protect themselves. I remember we had a participant named Stephen Ward. He was the first one that I remember working with. That I remember him asking another participant, or hearing another participant saying that he had asked him, like, "Man, I need a gun because people trying to kill me." And he was killed. Like, it wasn't like he was killed. The participant told us this the day after he was killed. And I remember him. He had really changed, but sometimes everybody don't know about your change or care. They see you, they want they leg back, like you said. So what advice would you say we give to those guys who want to change? They don't want to, but at the same time they want to stay alive, and they know some people are looking to hurt them, so they carrying a weapon. That's what I'm saying.
Well, the carrying a weapon part is not going to go well.
I got you.
Yeah, so that's definitely not the answer. But if they know who it is that is trying to kill them, if they know who they're in conflict with, then my recommendation would be that some outreach workers go and reach out to those people and see how you can resolve that conflict,
Mm.
what you can do to help them work through the trauma. Because if I no longer want to kill you and we're both alive, let's not muddy the waters up over someone who is already passed on, and I may have done something I should not have done, and now I'm trying to change my life. So can we work through this through having um, outreach workers and different people within the organizations pull those people together and try to work through it.
So right now we pushing this what they call non-aggression agreements. This campaign that's saying, okay, you agree not to come to my gas station. We agree not to come to your gas station. We agree not to make posts negative about your dead friends. You agree not to make posts about our dead friends. We agree when we see each other, you know, I ain't gonna look your way, you're not gonna look my way, type of thing. So we not antagonizing. I think that's with that kind of effort, I think we're gonna see a lot of more um, decrease in violence based on that. But just having somebody to mediate, what you're saying is having the mediator even speak to others to say, look, he don't want it, he don't want no problems with y'all, y'all don't want no problems with him.
Mhm.
Because what I've seen is if I don't want no problems with you and you don't want no problems with me, who told you that and who told me that? So when I see you, I might just pull just because I'm thinking you still
That
the
you gon'
same guy from last
mhm.
week or
I gotta
last
get you
year.
before you get
I
me.
got to get you before you get me, and
Mhm.
that's the concept that these young brothers and sisters today have. Because
Mhm.
we seeing an uprising
Females
females,
definitely.
like they going out, they drilling too. Like it's a thing with this
Mhm.
backdoor thing. It's a thing with females like I could kill too. It's so I don't. The violence is going down in Chicago, but there is a culture that's still like the the aroma is there to be
Mhm.
like at any moment. It ain't safe if you think, if you think this won't tick back up, we can make it happen if, with the, like I said, with the culture switching from, women would get involved, which back in the day it really wasn't like that. The
Mhm.
whole I'm going to with the back door and is, basically I'm gonna trick you to believe one thing, but the overall goal is to kind of
Get
end
you.
your
Mhm.
life. So that in itself is something. So
So there's a lot of work to do.
a
That
lot of work
yeah.
to do.
That's what we have to agree that there's a lot of
Hmm.
work to do, a lot of people to reach, and don't want to use the old cliche "together we can," but definitely together we can. As a community,
Hmm.
if we actually get boots on the ground and go into these communities and not be afraid to have conversations with these young people.
Hmm.
Um, I've never been afraid to talk to anyone. Um, I've gone into the drug houses. I've gone, but I'm not the only officer that does this.
Hmm.
Um, you go in and you form relationships with people. You talk to people and you have to get trust. They have to trust you. That's number one. You got to have some credibility. You got to have consistency.
The license
Yeah,
to operate.
yeah. You right. And I don't know if I have a license to operate,
No,
but
you got a license to operate.
but what I do know is that I care about people, and I've seen the work that Craig is doing. The young men in the community where I live, when I retired, um, I've had a lot of people say, "Hey, where you moving to?" Staying where I am. I love where I am. I can leave my front door open. Um, if I'm carrying in groceries, uh, the young people will. I don't see the guns, but I would assume they have them. But they put them up and they carry my groceries in for me. Uh, I'm not worried about the neighborhood because of people who have turned the corner. People who have made that change. Um, I'm sure you know the Sherman Skurlock story.
Yeah,
Yeah.
tell
Yeah,
it though. Tell tell
yeah,
tell the
yeah,
Sherman story.
yeah. So Sherman was a person who I knew from the neighborhood. Had to arrest Sherman a few times. Had to yell at Sherman a few times. And I was in my home getting ready to walk out the door, and I had my purse on my shoulder, and my boyfriend is walking behind me, and we're getting ready to go have dinner, and my doorbell rings as I get to the door. Open the door, and it's Sherman. Sherman had never been to my home. I
Did
was
he even know? How did he even know you lived there?
They all know where I
Oh,
live
they
because
all know.
I'm out in
They
front of the
call you
house.
mama, right?
Yeah, now they do.
Oh, okay.
I don't know what words they used to call me. Yeah, prior to them making this change, I don't know. I probably was called a lot of negative names. Yeah, because I was definitely a fusser. They would get scolded by me regularly, and they would accept my scolding. So Sherman's at my door, and I open the door, and he says, "I'm tired." I said, "Tired? What are you tired of?" tired of shooting at people. I'm tired of people shooting at me. So I'm looking at this young man. There were some other guys out in front of the house. So I said, come on in. And Sherman comes in and he says, can you go with me over to the Maniac Force because I want to get a peace truce with them. So I'm looking at this kid thinking to myself, you want me and you to go over to the gang, the area that if you just walk past it, they're gonna start shooting, and you want us to go over there. So I said, Sherman, I said, we called him Woo. I said, well, why don't we do this the right way? I said, why don't I go and talk to the commander, talk to the district intelligence officers? Let's make this right so that we go in and we have a good conversation. And I said, and then we will be able to get this truce. I talked to Varick Douglas, who was the commander at the time, and I talked to Dewan Turner, district intelligence officer, and they're saying, oh, yeah, that's cool. Let's do it now. The commander says, let's do it while it's fresh on his mind. So Sherman and I had exchanged phone numbers, and we were starting to try to get in touch with the guys from the other gang to try to set up a meeting for us and Sherman. So when I got home from work, Sherman called me and he says, hey, can I come by your house? Yeah, come on. So he comes over, second time Sherman's ever been in my home. And he says, I went over there by myself. I said, what do you mean? He said, I went over, I got out the car in the middle of the street, I raised my arms in the middle of the street. He said, and I showed them that I wasn't carrying. And I said, hey, I want this all to be over with. We don't even know what we're shooting at each other for. What are we doing? We're carrying on something that has nothing to do with us. I said, and obviously they didn't kill you because you're here. He said, okay, so we got a truce, and now I need you to talk to everybody and set everything up so that everybody knows that we're no longer shooting at each other. So I said to Sherman, not the smartest thing you've ever done, but it did work out well. So he said, well, now we'll go to that thing that you were talking about, that Chicago cred thing, that cred thing you were talking about, because I'd been going around trying to get them to come into cred. So I said, fine, fine, great, great, great. So I said, let me call Mr. Duncan. So I called Arnie Duncan and told him what Sherman had done. He said, I've got to meet this kid. When can I meet him? I said, well, he's right here, right now. So I set up for Arnie and Sherman to meet. And then we met at this little church around the corner. Pastor Jackson, Marlon Jackson, allowed us to use his little church for free, little bitty church right across from Wendell Smith Elementary School. So Sherman brought his guys to the church. And then Arnie said, okay, this is good, but we can't have a truce if we only have your guys. Where are the other guys? So we said, okay, we're going to invite them in also. So we brought all of them into the church together. And they happened to be the first cohort of guys for Chicago Cred. And they all started to work together. And Arnie said, what do you want in exchange for the peace that you've had for so many months? They said, we want all of our kids to have a park to play in. So there's a little park on 104th and Merrill Corliss, 104th and Corliss. The guys got together, the two groups, I hate to call them gangs, the two groups got together and they built the park along with the White Sox players and Kaboom, and we had hot dogs out there and they was playing music in the middle of the street, and the groups came together and they kept the peace going for a very long time. Some of the younger guys who were not a part of that truce grew up and started to have some conflicts again. So now we had to go in and, kind of apply a little pressure. This is unacceptable. We got a peace truce over here. We're not going to hear shooting all night. So Sherman, Robert, Avery, a bunch of the guys who were the old heads over
the
there.
original.
Yeah, they got with the guys who were older in the other group, and they start to tell these guys, hey, we're not having that over here. We don't fight each other. And their kids now play together. And it was just from Sherman deciding that he was tired of carrying a gun every time he took his child to school because he had to cross that area to get his son to school. I just got a picture a couple of weeks ago of Sherman's son graduating 8th grade.
You know,
Nice,
I
nice.
remember
Yes.
Sherman as a
Hothead.
no, no, no. I remember Sherman getting a job at Cred, like in almost like the orientation part,
Mm-hmm.
and I never heard this story. And
Really?
one of his OGs is a close friend of mine, and and I I always seen Sherman as a leader amongst his guys, and he was always. And I remember being in spaces where he was trying to tell his guys that, like, man, look, I ain't with that. Like, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not doing that. And he had to self differentiate, like, at times,
Mm-hmm.
because they'll be going, even though they was doing this, they was still going a little bit to left, and he had to, like, really stand on his ground and make that decision and go to the right. So when I see him right now as staff at Cred, and then he like a life coach or a job coach to so many guys and girls, it's like, man, to hear that story, to know that's where the seed was planted, and to see him right now in his professional realm taking some of these guys to go learn, solar technology, and making sure that they learn how to put in solar panels. It done went from him going to the middle of the street, say, "Hey man, I'm done," to now he got groups of people trying to figure out how to deal with new energy and solar energy. So, I just look at that as an amazing story, and a lot of young people need to know you can make that change and actually, go to a whole nother realm without being considered. That wasn't no snitching, or that wasn't no, he didn't do anything dishonorable.
Mm-hmm.
He tried to go save his life, other people's lives,
Yep. And he's
without,
still at it.
and still at it right now, years later. So,
He
man, that's
saved a
beautiful.
many of lives.
Yeah.
That definitely saved a many of lives because if you look at the conflict between 106th Street and then go north to 103rd, 106th go south to 111th, Cottage Grove East, the number of people that were being shot over there was unreal. I live over there. So my son actually went to play basketball at Poe Elementary School in the play lot, and he was told that he couldn't come down there because he lived north of 106th Street.
Yeah.
So my son came home and told me, he said, "Hey, I was down there playing basketball, and they said that I can't come down there. I have to play at Wendell Smith. I can't play at Poe." I said, "No, you can play at Poe." I said, "Come on, we going to play basketball at Poe."
Took him down there.
Yeah, I told him, I said, "We're going to play basketball at Poe." And I walked around and had conversations with people and let them know that my son is going to come down here and play basketball. And it is only my recommendation that my son not be touched. It is only my recommendation. This is not your basketball hoop. You will not do this. So my son grew up in the area. They all of them knew him. This is my oldest son. The little one I kept a little bit more away from the area. I learned a lot from the older one. Yeah. So but I overheard them talking about some things that were happening on the other end of Cottage. So that's when a lot of officers, we had some conversations about going in there and making some changes, stopping them from shooting each other and killing each other. The work that we were attempting to do, Sherman did it with just a conversation.
Yeah, it's
Mhm.
really
Yeah,
amazing.
we were working on that, but Sherman did it with a conversation.
So, Vivian, you spent 30 years with the Chicago Police Department. You've earned the right to just retire and relax, but you're not retiring and relaxing, are you? You're still at it, aren't you?
This is what I love. This is what I love. Um, when Arnie Duncan first came to Chicago and said that he was gonna do this Chicago cred, He met with who was Deputy Chief Larry Watson and Commander Varick Douglas, and he said, "I need someone who knows the streets and they'll trust them. I need a police officer that can get us in to have some conversations with people who want to change their lives." I'd worked at Corliss High School for about 10 years. I was the school officer in Corliss.
Mm.
So I knew, and I lived there. And I barbecued in the backyard and gave them hot dogs. And, they played basketball in the backyard. So they knew I knew these children, these young people. So they asked me to be the liaison between the police department and Chicago Cred to help them start to have conversations with the people that were responsible for a lot of the violence.
The
So
navigation through Roseland.
yeah, so that's what I did. And my relationship with the young people in the community was strong because they trusted me. We had a young guy to get killed in the gas station. The police came and knocked on my door and said, "Can you come and identify this young person? We think it's one of two people, but we believe he goes to Corliss." So I went over and looked at him and I told him who the kid was. And I said, that's his mom standing down there on the corner. And the next day in school, a group of kids came to the office, which we called the police office because we were uh, stationed inside the school at that time. And they came in, and a lot of them, they were crying. They were really upset. They had people. The board of ed had sent people in to have conversations and try to talk to them and help them work through this. And they maybe 20 young people came in the room and they closed the door and they asked me. They said, "Officer Williams, can we pray?" And I said, "Yeah, let's pray." So I went over and sat at my desk, and they were all holding hands, standing around, and no one said anything. So I'm waiting for them to start praying. And then one of the kids said to me, "Would you pray? We don't know how." So I said, "Wow." So, but we had to close the door because I know it's not supposed to be prayer in the schools. But if the kids wanted to pray, what do I say? No, we can't pray. So we closed the door and we held hands and we prayed about it, and they were able to come in and out the office and talk to myself and my partner. My partner at the time was Quentin Benson, and he's since retired. And we definitely had to help those students get through
Yeah.
the loss of a friend. There was so many students within the time that we were there who whose lives were taken, and it was just a lot to try to
Deal
talk
with.
to a kid who's 15, 16 years old, whose friend just got shot, and they're thinking about how do I revenge my friend.
Yeah, right.
Yes,
Yeah,
I,
teaching them forgiveness, teaching them to pray, teaching them to move on, teaching.
yes,
Yeah, a lot.
yes.
All right, but
I wanted to ask you a couple more questions and we can wrap it up. But um, a lot of the guys that do this work that's been impactful that I've noticed is guys that kind of came from the street that learned, certain elements. Many of them did a whole bunch of time and they come back with a vigor and ambition to really try to change.
Mm.
And because they have a license to operate in the sense people know them and what they've done and listen to their voice and hear the echoes. What do you think about when right now there's a push to try to get like a Larry Hoover out of prison? I know Donald Trump pardoned um, his federal sentence, but now he's going to a state facility like as a police officer, and knowing the Chicago history. What do you think about a person like that actually coming out and possibly helping in this field? You think it'd be beneficial or not?
I don't know what his mind is, so I would have to know, is this some work that he wants to do? Has he made that change? uh will he come out and try to encourage these guys not to go where he's gone? uh I've seen people say, I was born into the gangs. So that's a life that they just won't let go. So to answer that question is a little difficult because I would have to know, is he willing? Is he going to make a difference? Is he going to make a positive change when he comes out and starts to talk to these young people? Uh, exactly what is he going to tell them? So finding out who he is first. Who there's a guy at Cred. You know Ashley Miller. I'm so fond of Ashley. I think he is like the greatest guy. Matter of fact, I got to give him a call because they want him to come and talk at uh, a Know Your Rights event that they're having. I think Failings Family Services is doing it. But if you come out and you've made a change and you want to see a change, you don't want to see someone follow the path that led you to the penitentiary, then yeah. But if you gonna come out on the same nonsense, nah, yeah.
I respect
Vivian, thank you so much. And thank you for what you do. Thank you for your belief in service. And thank you for what I know you're going to do in the years ahead to continue to push peace in your community and your city. We need it. We need all the help we can get.
Yes, we do. And we're going in the right direction.
that. That's right.